What's happening, everyone, and welcome back to the Pathways to Success podcast. Today in studio, I have Erin Smith.
Yes.
And Erin is an entrepreneur, a best-selling author, a podcaster, as well as the founder of the Entrepreneur Summit. Erin, welcome to the podcast. How are
Thank you. I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited that you are here. So, Erin, just to give a little bit of backstory in terms, before we start talking about these things that we want to discuss, you have an amazing entrepreneurial background. You have been starting businesses since you were a baby. So give us a little bit of background in terms of your story.
Yeah, well, I don't want to start like when I was born or the baby
Sure.
started, but I think what's important to know
Yeah.
is I was born on a farm. Like, I am a tried and true farm girl from Wisconsin. I
Yeah.
was the youngest of three, so I watched my brother and sister work. They're much older than I am. And I was bored. So at 5, I begged my dad for a job. So I've literally been working since I was 5, and that's just all I've known. And when I went to corporate America, but as entrepreneurial as my dad was, he was very get a job, be safe. I was good at math. He showed me kind of the ropes of running a business from a farming perspective. We had a pretty large farm, and he showed me those things, but he wanted me to be safe. So when I went to work for Accenture and I got weekends off, and I had holidays off, like, it was the best thing in the world. But in my boredom, and I saw kind of that maybe corporate America wouldn't take care of me forever, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and said, well, I need to own. So that was where I started. I went to school at night to get my real estate license just so I could invest. Started investing, invested in some property out in the Carolinas. I was living in Arizona at the time, and that's where I learned to file an LLC.
Right.
Like, everything was just basic. And then I moved out here, and it was just it was just my husband was going to school and working on a PhD in psychology. He needed some work for the summer. So I started my first business as a pet sitting company, right? And I just used the money we made to invest in houses with no intention of doing anything. Long story short, started hiring employees, started buying out competitors, and I got the bug. Like, I was like, this is really awesome. I can make a lot of money doing, I don't want to say stupid things, but basic things, right?
Sure, yeah.
A lot of people think business has to be, well, I need to get millions of dollars in funding. I need to, build this the next Facebook, and it's just simply not true. There's so much different opportunity out there. So that was my first real business. Sold that, moved into other service-based businesses, and that's just been, I'm a person who's willing to try it. If I have interest in it, like the event business, this is my 3rd year. I had no idea what I was doing, but I'm like, I want to try this. And either I complain about the situation that no one else is doing it, or no one else is doing it the way I want to do it, or I try it. So that's kind of been the past 20 years of my life.
So was there a leap into it, or did you start the pet business part-time, or what was that?
It was part-time. So I was
was
working. I was working, and my corporate life was, I eventually got into IVR, so interactive voice response.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of design work. So I was really lucky in the sense that I worked for a company out of Phoenix. I said, I met a boy, I fell in love. I want to move into Dallas, and I was just part-time. So I would live in Dallas a few months and go back to Phoenix a few months, and they were like, wherever you want to work, we don't care. As long as you can travel to client sites, we're good. So I would literally, helping him out, I'd get up early in the morning, walk a few dogs, get to my home office, work, go out at lunch, walk a few dogs, and we were just juggling this till we started hiring employees, and that was just part-time. We thought, well, just to get us to Christmas or through the summer. And by the time I sold it, we had 12 full-time employees. Like I said, I bought out 2 competitors. I had somebody running the businesses. It was crazy, and it was just it was all just a natural progression.
So since then, how many companies have you actually started and sold?
I'm in the process of selling off my real estate business, so that'll be my 3rd sale.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the events business?
Well, I didn't really understand how important events were as I was building my first couple companies, because I just was kind of in my own little world. And I did corporate events, and I was like boring. I hated them. I was just like, oh my God. I'd speak at them, and I'd be like, oh my God, these are so boring. So it was 5 years ago, Entrepreneur Magazine did an event in Dallas, and I loved it. It just opened my eyes. It wasn't like a rah-rah. It was just a true entrepreneurial event, talking about, what other people were doing, in a sense of, I remember content marketing was a topic there, and sales was a topic, and it was so eye-opening to me that I'm like, I really love this. And so I was co-running a group called Dallas Entrepreneurs where we would do, monthly events. And so I got to see what people were really interested in. And a few years went by, and I had my company, the Starters Club, and I was helping businesses there. And I was so scared to do an event because I was like, it was like you're gonna put yourself out there in a way, have a party, and what if nobody shows up?
What if no one shows up?
Like
That's
that was
fear, right?
terrifying.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, my poor husband, God bless him, he came in and he's like, I think you should do an event. I'm like, no, I'm not event worthy. And then I sat on it for a while. I knew I'd have regrets if I didn't try it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, all right, I'm gonna do one. And I said, I called down the North Tollway to see what was available. Frisco was available. I booked the hotel. And I remember he came back like that night, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this in 3 months. He's like, whoa, and that was my first event, and I just started calling and put it together and thought I would never do it again. It was so hard. I didn't sleep. I gained 10 pounds. Like you could see me progressive. Like it was horrible. But then I remember there was this moment where we're in the event. Like I said, I was convinced I was done.
Yeah.
And this young girl stood up, and she was actually really young. And her mom had taken her out of school for that day because she saw the event on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Her daughter had this interest in entrepreneurship, and this daughter just stood up and just started asking these questions on one of our panels. And like I still get goosebumps thinking about it because I was just like, dang it, that's why I did this. I did this to inspire people and help them with their businesses. And just, it's not an all-day event that could change your life. Sometimes it's just that one nugget in that one session. And so I sat there and I looked at her, and I remember just standing outside of the room going, I have to do this again. Like, this is exactly why I set out to do this. Yeah. And as much as I don't want to, as much as it stresses me out, I have to do it again. And so the next year, I went bigger and better and booked Robert Herjavec of Shark Tank.
How long ago was the first one?
First one was 2016.
Okay, so you've been doing this for a couple of years now.
Yes, so this will be my 3rd year.
Wow.
Yes.
So amazing. So what is do you still keep in touch with that young lady?
I don't. No, I don't. In fact, it was after the first year, they tried to, we reached out, somebody wanted to reach out and connect them, and I don't know if they ever did. So, unfortunately.
That'd be an interesting sort of follow-up. And she inspired you to keep going. That's significant in the story. Yeah. Very cool. So tell us, so that kind of sounds like that was the beginning of Entrepreneur Summit, right?
Yes.
So like, what is the current iteration of it today?
So right now, we do one a year in the Frisco area. Mm-hmm. So, and it's really, a lot of people, I feel like I'm getting over the hump of people not saying it's a Frisco event. Because if you're not familiar with the Dallas area, there's kind of the great divide of 635 is what I call it, where if you're not going to go north of 635 or south. And so a lot of people were like, well, it's a Frisco event. Well, it's this. And so I had to overcome getting over that. And last year it was more regional. So we had people from Oklahoma come, people from Austin come, Houston, I think we had Louisiana there. I mean, we had people from all over come. So I'm like, all right, if you're not going to come from Dallas, I'll connect the community on a regional basis. So I feel like I'm finally getting over that. Once I feel, and I'm still trying to figure this out as a business owner, as running this in events, and I feel like I don't have to live in the city to make it happen. I want to expand out to the East Coast and West Coast. So my goal would be about 3 a year. Yeah. And why I did Dallas was I had this moment where I had that event I really loved, but B, I was going to San Francisco all the time, or San Diego for these conferences I loved, but nothing was here in Dallas. And I mean, we're one of the greatest entrepreneurial communities in the United States.
I believe that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why don't we have something like this here where we can gather? There's Startup Week, which is specifically for startups, and the summit is really for those business owners who have started but need help growing. So you're at that stage where it's like you've got some momentum, but how do you scale? How are other people? What are the systems you need in place? How are other people doing? How have other people before you, like a Calvin Carter, a Bottle Rocket? Yeah. How did he go from having Starbucks meetings and finding people on Craigslist to a 200 employee plus company, and it's like, how do you get to that next level? So that's really where we focus on, and moving into other cities. I want to find those other cities that are like a Dallas, where you've got this great thing, but nobody nobody takes notice of you enough because you're not Silicon Valley or you're not a New York City, and so it's like how do you build those communities a little bit stronger?
So who would you say this is for? You mentioned the startup, but it sounds like more experienced entrepreneurs come as well.
Yes.
So who is your audience for this?
The audience is really small business owners who are 2 to 3 years in at least.
Yeah.
Right around 10 employees or under is kind of our sweet spot, and you've been around, but you need help growing.
Yeah.
And what we really want to focus on is getting you out of your hole, like getting you out of your, sometimes we go to trade event, like in our industry, but we don't go across. Like, what are other industries doing? How are they? And I think that's one of the greatest things you can do as a business owner is just get out of your bubble.
Yeah.
And find out, because how they're marketing may not be something your industry is used to, but it could be something that just is killer for you to be able to do and get out there. So that's why we purposely don't say this is just for industry A or industry B, but it's really about various industries that you can learn from.
That's what I was actually going to be asking next. Like, is there a particular kind that you sort of tailor to, or these are sort of general principles that apply to every kind of business?
It can be general principles that apply to any business. Like, for example, we have a technology track.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And it's not necessary. It's these terms that you hear all the time, like blockchain, for example. I'll be honest, I'm still, like, I have friends who are like calling me, like, Erin, you got to get into this. I'm like, I haven't had time to study. I'm like a big studier, like, I want to figure it out and see what it's all about.
There you go.
All right.
How about that? It was inevitable. So, yeah.
I was warned. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think anything bad of you there for a minute.
Sure, I know. That's always the awkward piece, but yeah.
But it's like, how can that apply to you? And I think right now especially, there is look at what's changed in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
It's changing so fast. And these terms are coming at us, and it is like, okay, as a business owner, you have 50,000 things on your plate, and you're struggling with, do I listen to this? Should I care about this? Am I going to become the next Toys R Us if I don't pay attention to this?
Yeah.
Or is it okay if I can skip this right now? Like, chatbots is another one we're going to be covering. We're actually going to do a whole workshop on it, and it's a really big term. And then there's like 20. A chatbot, it can be just a simple coded thing, or it can be an AI thing, or it's learning itself. So there's so many different things you can do, and you know what? It can work for the fitness studio down the road. It can work for certain things, but I know it's extremely overwhelming right now for business owners.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really want the summit to be a very clear picture. You're going to have content that you can, that's very actionable. And I want to take away some analysis paralysis for you. Like, this is what it is. This is how it can benefit you. This is how it's benefiting other companies. You can make that decision if you should or shouldn't. Or maybe you say, not right now, but I want it on next year's plan. Something along those lines. So that's how we really focus our content, and that's how I want to be able to help business owners, where it's just, there's so much coming at us right now, and just kind of streamline that and help you see how other people are applying it and really see if it makes sense for you.
I love it. So we talked about kind of like who, and also like who's this for, but like in terms of the what, right? Let's talk specifics about the one that's coming up in
June 18th and 19th.
June 18th and 19th. So for individuals interested in attending, what will they get from it? You mentioned workshops. So like, what's the format? Is it speaking? Is it workshop? Like, what does it look like?
It is, okay, so this is the year we actually moved into officially a 2-day event, but our bread and butter, how we started, was what we call the main stage event. So you can buy a 1-day ticket and just come to the main stage.
Gotcha.
Or the 2-day. What the 2-day does is get you into workshops. So we have a technology, a marketing, business fundamentals, and personal development and leadership.
Yeah.
And 2 tracks will be going on at the same time, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And they're focused on really like more tactical, specific, how to build one is how to keep culture while you scale. So how to keep your culture in your business while you're scaling and building more, just things like that are applicable to business owners. The second day is a combination of keynotes, panels, and CEO fireside chats.
Yeah. Oh,
so I love
very cool.
CEO fireside chats. And why I do is last year I was invited to an Inc. event by Inc. magazine. And the woman who was a co-founder of New Belgium Brewing Company, I was invited as an influencer. So I got inside access to this like really intimate interview style with her of telling about her company and just when she went through a divorce, and it was just so amazing. Like it was just so interesting.
Yeah.
Then I saw her do the keynote, and it was very similar content, but a totally different experience with her just saying it on a stage versus being in that intimate discussion,
Sure,
if that
yeah.
makes sense. So it was right before my event, and I had Robert Herjavec coming last year, and I'm like, he was going to do a keynote, and I switched it. I'm like, I want the fireside chat, and it was just so interesting. And you can actually, if you go to our website, eSummit Events, I listed that on our podcast, so you can hear that conversation.
Yeah.
And I love the CEO fireside chats, and we have 3 of those throughout the day. We have Bottle Rocket CEO coming.
Calvin Carter. That's going to be
Yes.
awesome. Our very own, yeah.
Yeah,
Very
and
cool.
Jeff Sinelli of Witch.
Oh, sweet.
And Lee Allemeyer, she exited in 2003. I don't know if it was her first company, but it was to 3M. And excuse me, she and I talked, and I can't wait for her to come on because we're going to talk about, I don't want to call it the dark side of entrepreneurship, but it's not easy being an entrepreneur.
Sure.
And she'll tell the story of she exited to 3M, and she's like, I wasn't even happy, like, because that's what I was supposed to do. And so it's this moment in your life where you've accomplished the ultimate, right? Like, you had a massive corporation buy your company, and she's just like, yeah, so what? That's what I was supposed to do. And we're going to talk about, the weight that we carry on our shoulders as entrepreneurs, but you can't talk about it because you're like, I'm so stressed out, but I got to show everybody that I've got it all together. So I love those because as you're sitting there, you're like, I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we're so close to that success, but we feel like we're the only one who's stumbling or failing, or we've got that dark moment, and it's like, everybody's been there, you just got to push through. And hearing Robert last year, we were talking about it, and he goes something about keeping him up at night. I'm like, what still keeps you up at, like, you're Robert Herjavec, what could possibly keep you up at night? And he's like, I have over 200 employees. I carry that. Like, I know my decisions can reflect, affect those families. And I don't literally stay up at night, but I think about it every single day and the decisions I make and how that could affect them. I'm like, wow, like you're the epitome of success, right? So that's why I love those, but I kind of went off on a tangent. And then panels, we've got a whole Shark Tank panel for Mark Cuban's companies.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
So he has like a 90% success rate.
Wow.
And it's all because of the system he puts them through.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that system, what changed for them after
Oh gosh,
they
that's
got
awesome.
invested. I know, I'm
Yeah.
super excited. We've got a whole investment panel, or not investment, but how to do business with corporations.
Yeah.
So we've got an exec at Ericsson coming. We've got another couple companies talking about how do you get into business with corporations if that's what you want to do? How do you get in the door? How do you sell yourself?
That's awesome.
Excuse me. And then we've got a couple keynotes. Carrie Wilkerson, the Barefoot Executive. Mel Abraham, he is amazing. He's going to come out of California. He is, I met him through Brendan Burchard by going to his events, and he's a real systems and process guy.
Yeah.
I geek out over that stuff. And then chatbots. So it's just a whole day of various content. But there's one thing I promise, you're going to meet amazing people, and you're going to have actionable content. Like, you will have things that you can leave there and apply to your business immediately.
I love it. As far as all the content and all the topics and everything, it makes a lot of sense. But why events specifically? How can events, this live event, help business owners specifically versus other mediums of training and learning, I guess?
There's just something about, there a couple things. First of all, connections. And that's one thing, like, we will purposely work to connect people because you've got to get out of your hole. Like, and I know sometimes we go to events and it's like, oh my God, like, it's rough. But we don't do a lot of free tickets. We specifically, people are there at the same place you are. So they value themselves, they value their business, they want to learn, they want to grow. And when you find a room of people like that, I don't think there's anything better. So there's that perspective. And just to be there in the moment, I know for me, really what opened my eyes about events too, is I've heard content 50,000 times. I mean, we're not in a place where it's hard to find content and learn.
Sure.
But in that moment when you're there and you're focused and you're listening, so many times it can just change. It can be that click. It can be that I get it. Or, I mean, I haven't been in a position where I saw 6 Shark Tank companies and Mark Cuban talking about their stories. So it's those various abilities to get those people in a room. You never know who you're going to meet. I mean, there's going to be some really amazing people there, and you just never know what that one connection could do for you.
Yeah. No, as you know, I'm a recruiting professional,
Yeah.
and I know it sounds so cliche, but dude, it's the truth. Your net worth is equal to your network, and when you meet these other people, it's these connections that you make.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I love what you mentioned also about like the storytelling of the entrepreneur, how you see someone so successful like a Herjavec, but has his own kind of insecurities about things.
Yes.
To me, I connect best when I sort of see the vulnerabilities of someone, because it makes success that much more sort of attainable for me.
Exactly.
And I love that.
Yeah, like wow, they went through
They're a person.
they're a person.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, he told a story about how we were talking about the mistake, and he had a guy who built a competing company, had no idea, and basically he would he goes, it was like to a T. He'd taken 2 deals and deny a 3rd deal and say, oh, we can't do this one, but I got another company that can do it.
Yeah.
And had done that for years. And so when he was leaving, he had no clue that this guy had taken him for millions.
Wow.
And somebody like finally spilled the beans on him, and he went to the guy and he's like, is this true? This can't be true. Like, and it was true. And the guy goes, yep. And he just walked out, quit, went over to his other company. And I mean,
wow.
yeah. And he tells, you're just like, wow, like you said, you're human. You've made these mistakes, and yet, you know, sometimes we stumble, we hit a block, and it's not that the successful, or, you know, or what you think of successful never hit those blocks. They just kept going. You know,
Yeah.
they just said, all right, wipe the knees off. I got knocked down, but I'm going to keep going. And so that inspiration, you're like, I need to keep going. Like,
Yeah.
that's what's going to make me get to the place that I want to go to. It's not, you know, sitting in the mess that happened to get handed to me right now. Because there's a mess happening as an entrepreneur. Like,
Yeah.
I hate to be doom and gloom, but there's going to be a curveball that comes at you, and you just got to figure out how to handle it.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of a perfect topic here for us to close on, because you've obviously achieved great entrepreneurial success. You've been around so many other incredible entrepreneurs and helping them succeed. So I know one of the topics you're passionate about is sort of what are the biggest issues that entrepreneurs have and how to help them get out of it. So what do you want to say about that?
I think as entrepreneurs, so many times we're in our own way of things. I think, and this is why I always have, every year we have something around personal development, because I think we know a lot of times what we're supposed to do. We just might not necessarily do it. I think we're our own worst enemies. We're second guessing ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think as an entrepreneur, I see so many times they do one thing, but they don't take advantage in various ways to do it. Like, they drive traffic to a website, that's great, but then how are you capturing that? How are you doing that? And so they do these tiny things, but they don't do everything that they're supposed to do. And I think most of the time we know what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
We're our own worst enemy. And so make a decision and go forward. And just move forward with that decision. Stop second guessing and say, I know I'm horrible about this. Like, should I have done this? Should I have changed the date? Should I have done? But it's like, Erin, date set, go, do it. Now make a decision on how to go forward and do this. And so get out of your own way. I think that's the biggest thing. Get to these events, meet people, connect, learn you're not alone, and, you know, build a community too. But I think you know what you're supposed to do, just do it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Erin, tell our audience and viewers and listeners how to connect with you, how to attend your events. Give us all this.
All right, so East Summit Events is where you can go check out the lineup, get your tickets, use code GUEST, GUST, for another 20% off. Like I said, you can come for 1 day, come for 2, come for the VIP, where we're going to have a happy hour where you can connect with some of our speakers. Whatever is going to fit best in your schedule, we've got it covered. And you can also find me all over the social at Entre Summit, pretty easy. And then thestartersclub.com too is my other company.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to have all this information here plugged into the show notes. You can connect with Erin directly. And everyone else, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success podcast. Erin, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.